Hi, everyone. I hope you enjoyed your quick mental break. We're right back with our next session. I'm Isaac. I'm an account executive here at Atera. I'm being joined here by Erin Meyers, Senior Manager for Product Marketing at Bitdefender. Erin, welcome. We're thrilled to have you with us. Why don't you start off by telling us a bit about yourself?
Hi, Isaac. Hi, everyone. My name is Erin Meyers. As Isaac said, I'm a Senior Manager of Product Marketing for our Managed Services unit at Bitdefender. Bitdefender, 21 years old, headquartered in Romania, and we're known as an endpoint security powerhouse. But we did get into MDR about 3 years ago, and that's kind of where I come in. I head up Managed Services and Managed Detection and Response specifically. And I'm excited to be here today to talk to you guys.
We're excited to have you. Fantastic. Let's get right into it then, Erin.
All right. Today, we are talking about how organizations can build a cyber resilient future and how to leverage MDR to navigate the threat landscape. So what we'll be going over, some organizational challenges that a lot of organizations face, the ever-changing, ever-evolving landscape of cyber threats, the importance of building cyber resilience, and the benefits of outsourcing security monitoring and incident response. We're also going to speak a little bit about MDR's impact on cyber resilience and best practices for implementing MDR services. So let's first take a look at what organizations are facing today. As you may be aware, there is a significant gap in the cybersecurity talent field, and it's difficult for companies to retain and recruit skilled security professionals. You know, if they are able to, and they do have the in-house security expertise, they necessarily don't have the resources enough to scale 24/7 coverage. They also face tool complexity. Cybersecurity tools aren't helping necessarily as much as they're marketed to say they do. And a lot of this creates more work for already resource-strained organizations. Organizations also face alert fatigue. And this means that if you have an EDR tool, for an example, that you're getting a flood of alerts with no mechanism in order to prioritize by severity. And this takes time away from focusing on those crucial response activities. I'm sure you guys are also aware of the new, cyber insurance requirements. It's a big issue facing organizations today as they attempt to put protective mechanisms in place in the case of an attack. The cyber insurance market has hardened over the past few years. And what that means is cyber insurance is both harder to get and it's more expensive to get. And the requirements to obtain cyber insurance are not standardized. We also have compliance issues facing organizations, regardless of what industry, and you're likely to be subject to some compliance mandates and or data privacy requirements. In the healthcare vertical, think HIPAA. If you're in financial services, think PCI DSS. And if you interact or work in EMEA, you're also going to be subject to GDPR. So let's take a look at the evolving threat landscape. IT and cybersecurity teams face increasing pressure as phishing and ransomware attacks grow more sophisticated, with over half of the companies experiencing cyber threats and data breaches in the past year alone. The global average cost per data breach has increased by over 2% to 4.35 million. And the strain on cybersecurity teams is evident. Many have to work on the weekends, and some have been even asked to stay quiet about data breaches that shouldn't remain confidential. Bitdefender recently commissioned a survey with Census-wide in which we polled IT and cybersecurity leaders, and we found that over 84% of respondents in the US say they've experienced an increase in phishing attacks. Some 72% of those have reported an increase in the sophistication of those phishing attacks. These attacks, alongside software vulnerabilities, social engineering, and supply chain attacks, make the top 3 most concerning threats for organizations. Ransomware alone is expected to cost organizations upwards of $30 billion in 2023. So if we sit back and evaluate how cyber threats have evolved and become more sophisticated at the same time with our digital environment becoming more complex, a company's ability to address these cybersecurity concerns rely heavily on its internal readiness and mobilization. Effectively, it relies on its ability to be cyber resilient.
So Erin, as these attacks are becoming more and more sophisticated, are the existing solutions capable of being resilient enough to meet the requirements of these new sophisticated attacks?
So Isaac, that's a good question and a complicated one at that. There are a lot of solutions out there, be it EDR, be it XDR, be it MDR, and they all have varying capabilities. However, the most holistic solution when it comes to detection and response strategy is managed detection and response. Managed detection and response basically appeals to organizations who don't necessarily have the in-house expertise and or want to augment their existing internal security team. And MDR, for example, a lot of cyber insurers are now requiring organizations to have MDR. They're not calling out EDR or XDR, but they're actually calling out MDR to meet those requirements. So I would allege that MDR is constantly evolving and rising to these threats of this evolving threat landscape and providing a veritable solution to organizations.
Sure. Fantastic.
So let's take a moment to think about what exactly is cyber resilience. According to NIST, which is the National Institute of Standards and Technology, cyber resilience is the ability to anticipate, withstand, recover from, and adapt to adverse conditions, stresses, and attacks, or compromises on systems that use or are enabled by cyber resources. According to the Department of Homeland Security, cyber resilience is about adapting to changing conditions and rapidly recovering. I'm going to throw what Bitdefender thinks in, just to throw Bitdefender in the mix. To Bitdefender, cyber resilience is about the ability to maintain systems and data confidentiality and integrity. So thematically, to many, it's about preventing. To some, it's about detecting and recovering. And to others, the focus is on recovering. So what is it? How should you think of it? There are many definitions out there of resilience, but the most common theme across all of them focus on withstanding and recovering. And why is this important? Business leaders around the world have come to the realization that contemporary cyber threats are too complex to be addressed adequately by any sole cybersecurity solution. Even with reinforced security measures in place, cyber criminals can exploit human error or identify vulnerabilities to gain unauthorized access to an organization's network and IT infrastructure. This underscores the importance of cyber resiliency as a crucial component in safeguarding against such attacks. Cyber resilience is extensive and covers everything from data security to IT infrastructure to business functions to business continuity and disaster recovery. But the ultimate objective of cyber resilience is for organizations, in the case of an attack, to be able to rapidly recover and maintain standard business practices with little to no downtime. So this is one of my favorite slides. In today's new normal, we're going to get punched. It's not great, but there it is. We're going to get punched. Risk is about understanding when, where, and how we're most likely to get punched. Resiliency is about how well we can take that punch when it comes. But what does that mean in the context of our security programs and critically the businesses we defend? So here you see the NIST CSF framework or the NIST cybersecurity framework. Back in 2017, the SANS Institute made a statement that security isn't a technical problem, but a business problem. And NIST captures the far-ranging impact in its cybersecurity framework model. There are a handful of cybersecurity best practices frameworks out there. They all help organizations in an effort to become cyber resilient. But I focus on NIST here because it's one of the most recognized and esteemed in the industry. What the NIST CSF does, it helps organize, minimize, and avoid completely business impact in the event of an attack. By focusing on 5 key areas that would be identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover, the NIST cybersecurity framework helps organizations develop and implement a best practices security program aimed at defending, protecting, and minimizing risk.
So speaking of the framework, I mean, are hackers potentially targeting a specific organization size? Are enterprises more susceptible to hacks than small or medium-sized businesses? Is there a sweet spot, Erin?
Sure, that's a great question, Isaac. So hackers, unfortunately, are really good at being bad. And you know, I speak to my analyst in our Bitdefender SOC, and I'm like, you guys are really good at you know, getting the bad guys. But you have to think like a bad guy. And thinking like a bad guy, if you were a hacker, would you target one business or would you target 1,000 businesses? And by the 1,000 businesses, I'm speaking to supply chain attacks. Hackers have, you know, it's either 1 or 1,000 in terms of augmenting the reach. They're going to pick that 1,000. However, what that means for organizations and their sizes is that smaller organizations are in fact getting hit quite frequently. You know, they're always going to be targeting enterprises for that big fish, but due to the setup with MSPs and MSSPs and all of the end customers they protect, we're seeing more and more frequently end customers getting hit.
Sure. So, I mean, it really has nothing to do with the size. At the end of the day, everyone needs to be protected without question. I'm sure the team would agree. Yes?
Absolutely. Correct.
Yes. Most certainly. Fantastic.
All right. So how do you build cyber resilience with a limited budget? Security operations is a crucial component of any effective security program, but it can be expensive. So with so many platforms and services out there, you know, where should you invest? Solutions that offer integrated comprehensive security controls deliver more capabilities without adding more vendors, procurement, contracts, support, maintenance costs, etc. These solutions focus on all of the 5 areas that I just covered within the NIST CSF, ensuring organizations can identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover in the event of an attack. But a lot of organizations these days have limited capacity to provide comprehensive internal security operations, and in many cases must look to managed and consulting services to provide previously unattainable services. As you can see from this slide, this survey, 45.4% of organizations have or are turning to managed security services to address the 24/7 gap in coverage, and 35% to free up internal IT or cybersecurity resources. This is what I'm arguing. This is where managed detection and response comes in. So where does MDR fit in the cyber resilience framework? By definition, MDR services provide customers 24/7 remotely delivered, human-led, turnkey, modern SOC operations functions to ultimately deliver threat disruption and containment. According to Gartner, by 2025, 60% of organizations will be actively using threat disruption and containment capabilities delivered by an MDR provider. That's up from 30% today. MDR services play a critical role in the cyber resilience framework by providing organizations with proactive detection and response capabilities that are essential in mitigating the impact of cyber threats. MDR services address top challenges in the market, including the increasing sophistication of phishing attacks, data breaches, and data leaks, and the need for cybersecurity capabilities across various distributed environments, including on-prem, cloud, and hybrid cloud.
So Erin, is there still a benefit to outsourcing a service like an MDR when you are, for example, using an EDR service already in-house, have an in-house IT team and a security team? Where is the benefit? Is there an added benefit to still outsourcing something like an MDR on top of that which you have in place?
Absolutely. So the benefit of adding MDR as a security layer on top of an EDR tool is that you might have an IT team, you might have a small security team, but trust me, their least favorite thing to do is triage alerts. And it's the most time-consuming thing that they have to do. What MDR does is take that off your team, take care of it. They do that in an outsourced fashion. So the internal IT and small security teams can focus on more strategic business initiatives and focus on things that really move the needle for that organization.
And I'm sure it'll save some tiresome weekends and long extended weeks dealing with these situations when they do arise. And naturally, we want to prevent those instances, of course.
Absolutely. So let's look at what exactly is included in MDR security services. So what you see here, all of the gray boxes are security use cases, and the blue boxes are specifically MDR use cases. So you're going to see 24/7 security monitoring and response. That is key. That is something that, an EDR tool or solution can't provide. That turnkey threat detection and investigation and response. Those capabilities are core requirements for organizations, and MDR provides that. We also, do the alert triage and the alert investigation. We don't want to be sending organizations, numerous false positives. We do all of that work for you. We also do deeper dive into the core threat intel use cases, which include things like dark web monitoring, brand and IP protection, high priority target monitoring, making sure those organizations that need those enhanced threat intel capabilities have those available. Our threat intelligence team, which we call CIFC, Cyber Intelligence Fusion Cell, works for a number of our MDR customers to really give them that leg up. They research open source, they research our sensor feeds from our Bitdefender labs, and they make sure that organization is in the best position to ward off attacks. So the MDR threat intelligence and threat hunting, particularly at Bitdefender, is a huge value add for what we do with our MDR service. So what organizations should look to MDR for is that 24/7 remotely delivered human-led security operations capabilities when there are no internal existing capabilities, or when the organizations needs to accelerate their security program or augment their security team. This is where organizations should look to MDR. So what is MDR's impact on cyber resilience specifically? Crucially, MDR monitors your environment 24/7. This is a key characteristic in the detect pillar, which I showed you earlier in the NIST CSF framework. Everything bad happens at night. So 76% of ransomware deployments happen after business hours, and organizations can't stop active monitoring of their environments at the end of the business day. This is a huge value add for MDR because unlike XDR, unlike EDR, humans are monitoring your environment 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. There's no time off. We're always there keeping your organization safe. Ultimately, MDR bridges the gap across those categories: the identify, the protect, the detect, respond, and recover. It provides faster response times and is isolating devices, and it frees up staff to act on triage or validated alerts. Through the use of machine learning and artificial intelligence, MDR offers continuous improvement and adaptation. Customers also get proactive, human-led, hypothesis-driven threat hunting to ensure attackers are kept at bay. With MDR providing comprehensive 24/7 monitoring and analysis by skilled experts, they're on hand to undertake the threat hunting and threat intelligence analysis on the customer's behalf. Effectively, they're there to provide context-driven insights that will directly impact the organization's business objectives. So investing in MDR has seen a huge increase, and that increase is expected to continue. By 2025, 60% of organizations will actively be using remote threat disruption and containment capabilities delivered directly by MDR providers, as I said, which is up from 30% today. Frost & Sullivan, as you can see, forecast the global MDR market to be $1.9 billion by 2024. So why such immense and anticipated growth? Because organizations are realizing that MDR services provide customers with what they need, the remotely delivered security operations center functions, and it empowers organizations to rapidly detect, analyze, investigate, and actively respond through threat disruption and containment. Effectively, MDR empowers organizations to become cyber resilient.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Erin. And out of curiosity, many of our listeners are probably using a basic AV. And based on everything that you're telling us today, is there a new default in terms of the industry standard of what a new basic or a default AV should be in today's world?
It depends on, it's not only about perimeter security any longer. So what used to be protected with an AV, there's just so many more threats to think about than the perimeter security. There is no basic solution, I would say, but there are solutions that provide detection and a holistic response strategy that enable organizations to actively combat threats and proactively be involved in ensuring their organizations become cyber resilient. AV, unfortunately, it's a point solution. You're not going to achieve cyber resilience with only AV. It can accompany broader solutions, but it's a very individualized use case and would best be augmented, depending on your organization's in-house security expertise, by an EDR or MDR solution.
And Erin, as far as threats go, what are the most concerning threats that you're finding amongst organizations today? What's really keeping them up at night? What type of threats?
I would say a lot keeps security experts up at night these days. Primarily, I would say software vulnerabilities and 0 days. Of course, ransomware is always up there. Phishing and social engineering is a huge area. Business email compromise is pretty big, and that involves organizations like internally training their staff in order not to click on the phishing link, to be very diligent in evaluating the email address it comes from. I must admit, Bitdefender conducts these phishing tests, and I've fallen victim to a phishing scam, which I never thought would happen, but it ended up I had to take additional training after that, so it won't happen again. But these are veritable threats that organizations are nervous about. And I mentioned it earlier, supply chain attacks are always a consideration, especially for organizations that kind of fall under the MSP umbrella. It's both crucial for those end customers as well as the MSP. And then, of course, like I said, ransomware, and then also probably insider threat.
Yeah. Certainly. Fantastic. And couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, these phishing emails are looking a lot more plausible as time progresses. They're really managing to collect information and making them seem like it's a true friend, or the post, perfect timing. Really just the way that they're timing everything and how they're really implanting these phishing emails at us. We really need to be a lot more diligent in terms of how we're working in our day-to-day, and sometimes just taking it easy.
Absolutely. Like the advent of machine learning and AI and chat GPT, it's just giving the tools to hackers to conduct these really on point phishing scams, and the sophistication is just outstanding. So it's definitely a risk for companies, and it can be combated obviously through external security tools, but it also needs to be internally addressed through cybersecurity training and kind of a degree of certification for employees.
And Erin, one of the important things that you mentioned here today is the importance for an organization to map out NIST framework or to adhere to NIST framework. Are there any recommendations to getting started in this process?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. So, I personally am partial to NIST. I think they lay out kind of the 5 pillars and the steps and requirements pretty well. But there are other best practices frameworks out there that you can absolutely use. The importance of using a best practices framework is it requires you to almost take a security audit of your environment and to find out what actually is going on, what endpoints are protected, what endpoints are not protected, if there's a gap in coverage. And it helps, give you footing in terms of figuring out your current state of your security posture. And from there, you can know better what kind of solution you're looking for and know what best to build on. It's also a great mechanism for you to use when you're articulating your cybersecurity posture and your degree of cyber resilience to leadership. You can say we have these mechanisms in place. They fall into identity, detect, recover, respond. And it really gives both the IT and security teams, as well as business leadership, an idea of what is going on in your environment and where you kind of are on the road to cyber resilience.
Fantastic. Seems like we all have some work to do after this session, that's for sure. Great. Well, Erin, thank you so much. And for anyone who's listening in that's interested in hearing more about Bitdefender's services or security in general, feel free to look into Bitdefender directly from the Atera website by heading into the App Center and clicking in on Bitdefender or directly on Bitdefender's website. Fantastic. Thanks again, Erin. Really appreciate it. And thanks for all the information. We've learned a lot.
Thank you, Isaac. Appreciate you having me.
Thanks so much for joining our session. Passing it on to my dear colleague, Gila, who'll be hosting a one-on-one session with the Director of Global MSP Programs at Malwarebytes, Brian Kane. Gila, over to you.